Thanks again to all of you for joining us today for this webinar, and really special thanks to all the small businesses from the SME Climate Hub community that will join the panel discussion later to share both their insights and, of course, their climate action journeys. As you know, we've organized this webinar to celebrate Earth Day. So Earth Day took place a few days ago, as a matter of fact. It was an important moment in time, of course, but we all know that considering the situation we're in with the environment, with the climate, Earth Day can't just be one day a year. It really needs to be a year-long effort, and that's why we're here today. And that's also why SMEs, similar to other stakeholders, really have a huge role to play. You might have heard me mention these stats in previous events organized by the SME Climate Hub, but I think it's always helpful to reiterate that small and medium-sized businesses, or businesses that have less than 500 employees, well, they make up 90% of businesses globally. They employ 70% of the world's workforce, and they also contribute over 50% of the global GDP. So they really are the backbone of our communities and our economies. And we simply cannot keep global temperature rise in check without bringing them on board to the net zero transition. But all that aside, it's also important to note that it's in the best interest of businesses to take action. We know that climate action and business resilience have historically been viewed as separate, but it's really becoming increasingly clear that building a climate resilient business also means building a resilient business, full stop. So it means building a business that can better weather market shifts and disasters as well. And SMEs in particular are more vulnerable to the impacts of weather events that are caused by climate change. So they have a more local customer base, local staff, and they can easily shutter amidst disasters. So it's really in their best interest to take action. And at the same time, we've also seen at the SME Climate Hub that taking climate action offers an opportunity for SMEs to reduce their costs, attract new investment, and also new customers. It's basically becoming a key success factor to build a stronger brand in what is often an overcrowded market where people increasingly care about sustainability. Now, we do recognize that this transition is not always easy for smaller businesses, and our surveys show that SMEs face specific challenges when taking climate action. In our most recent survey, we have found that over 80% of SMEs want to take action, but they also need additional support. And that might mean additional financial resources, tools for action, regulatory support, even support from their investors and customers. And that's where the Hub comes in. The Hub was launched by the Women Business Coalition, the Exponential Roadmap Initiative, and the United Nations Race to Zero campaign about a couple of years ago. And the interesting thing is that the Women Business Coalition has historically worked with the largest companies in the world to accelerate net zero companies. So we've seen firsthand during all these years that businesses, both big and small, are increasingly realizing that customers, financiers, governments are looking for companies that have a lower environmental footprint and also a positive impact in society. And we have founded the SME Climate Hub to bring on board a large portion of the business community that until now has been left out of the net zero transition, namely SMEs. And that again brings us to the SME Climate Hub. For those of you who don't know me yet, I'm Pamela Jouven. I'm lucky enough to be the director of the Hub and to work with a fantastic team to operate this digital platform that's been built as a one-stop shop to help SMEs get on board, start their transition to net zero. It provides SMEs with the opportunity to make a climate commitment, of course, but also to move from commitment to action and accountability by using the tools that we have built. We have designed specifically for smaller businesses. These tools include Climate Fit, which is a free online training course that provides step-by-step guidance to help smaller businesses reduce their emissions. We also have a business carbon calculator that allows businesses to measure their emissions, but also understand how they can start working on these emissions hotspots to really make an impact. And among many other tools, we also have a reporting tool that we have literally just launched, which we're very proud of. This tool is based on a framework, a simplified reporting framework that we co-developed with CDP about a year and a half ago, and it is now live. It's an interactive tool that enables SMEs to report their greenhouse gas emissions, climate actions, and also the impact of their emissions reduction plans. And it's also a way for smaller businesses to publicly disclose their progress to key stakeholders, especially the ones that they want to collaborate closely with. That includes customers, banks, employees, of course, and it's also a way, of course, to stay part of the Race to Zero, because the hub is also the key entry point for small and medium-sized enterprises to join the Race to Zero. So this campaign that is run by the United Nations. All the tools that I mentioned can be applied to businesses across every sector, really. Retail, technology, manufacturing, construction. We're currently sector agnostic, even though going forward, we might decide to develop even more tools, once again, to meet SMEs' needs in specific sectors. We also have over 5,700 SMEs across more than 120 countries who've made the SME Climate Commitment. And this, interestingly, includes businesses that are literally just getting started on their climate action journey, but also ones that are far along in terms of emission reductions efforts, and even some that are building climate solutions. And the majority of businesses in the audience have already made the SME Climate Commitment. So if you haven't, please check out the hub. Now is really the time to take action. Now, enough about me, really. I just wanted to say a few introductory words, but I think that the most important part of the event is going to be the panel discussion with the SMEs who we have invited. So you'll be hearing from SMEs that, once again, have taken steps to reduce their emissions. You'll have a chance to ask them questions to see how you might also adopt some of the changes that they have implemented. These businesses span, different regions, Mexico, US, UK, different industries as well, construction, hospitality, financing. And know that during the whole event, you'll have access to a Q&A feature, which you should be able to see probably at the bottom of your Zoom window. There's a button. So feel free to post your questions along the way, and we'll try and address them both during the panel discussion, maybe in writing, and especially towards the end of the event during the Q&A session. Now, if the panelists would like to turn on their cameras and mics, I might be able to introduce them. So we're lucky enough to have, as I said, 3 businesses with us today. We have Emma Jacobs, who's Social Purpose and Sustainability Manager at Legacy Vacation Resorts. We also have Inigo Orbañanos Corcuera, who's the CEO of Convive. And we have Ollie Cook, CEO and co-founder of Echo. So I would love for you all to introduce yourselves. I think you'll do this much better than I would be able to. If you could just briefly mention your sector, maybe your location, and also add one sentence about your background, your climate action journey, maybe including your emissions reduction goals and progress, if you're able to do so. And then I'll introduce our moderator so she can take this away and facilitate the discussion. So let's start with Emma, maybe. Over to you.
Thank you, Pamela. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm so happy to be here with you all. My name is Emma Jacobs. I'm the Social Purpose and Sustainability Manager at Legacy Vacation Resorts. We're a purpose-driven vacation resort company based in Orlando, Florida in the US, but we have resorts across 3 other states, New Jersey, Colorado, and Nevada. We are committed to using our industry, our sector of travel, tourism, and hospitality as a force for good to transform the industry into one that's more regenerative, equitable, and inclusive. We are embedding climate action into our business model, which our B Corp certification allows us to do. And we've committed to some of the most ambitious climate action targets, including net zero emissions by 2030. Looking forward to speaking more with you all, but I'll pass it over to Inigo.
Inigo, you might be on mute, if you don't mind. Inigo, could you please turn on your audio? I think you're on mute.
Sure. Hello, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. My name is Íñigo Orbañanos, founder and CEO of Convive. Convive is a housing company, and our purpose is to develop sustainable communities toward net zero. We have built 1,320,000 houses with the different certifications, like the EDGE certification from the IFC, member of the World Bank. And in this journey, we have had great results with great benefits to our customers and to the planet. Thank you very much again for inviting us to this panel.
Pleasure to have you with us. And last but certainly not least, Ollie, do you want to come in?
Hi, yeah, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. So I'm Ollie, co-founder, CEO of Echo. We're a multi-award winning fintech in the UK that uses the power of retail purchases to empower consumers and employees to live more sustainably every single day. So we're about empowering the individual to understand their impact and then make better choices every time they make any transaction anywhere in the world.
Brilliant. So I think, with these three wonderful panelists, this is bound to be an incredible discussion. And I'd like to invite Louise, our moderator for today, also to introduce herself. Louise works for Exponential Roadmap, which is one of our co-founding partners. Wonderful to have you here as well. Over to you so you can introduce yourself, but also simply facilitate the discussion. And I'll take a step back.
All right, Pamela, thank you very much. And also, I am very, very happy to be here. Super excited all day. I'll be guiding this panel through a few questions, hoping that you get some excellent information from these panelists. I work at Exponential Roadmap Initiative. It's an organization that collects companies, innovators, disruptors, and the information that they can gather and kind of spread them to others so that best practices can be reused to as many as possible. And we are working with Women Business, and the SME Climate Hub is one of the products where we have been supporting, and it's a really great tool. So if you haven't checked it out, please do so. But I also have 4 years of experience with working with supplier climate action or value chain climate action, if you want to call it that. And I love working with it, partly because it's quite challenging, and partly because you can see some results when things actually happen. But we will step right into the panel. But afterwards, I just want to say what Pamela already said, but if you have questions, please put them in the questions and answers box there, and we'll take them either through writing in the background or at the end. We have allocated some time for that. All right, so let's step into the questions. Panelists, are you ready? You are ready. Excellent. So I want to start with you, Emma. So what motivates you to build a more sustainable business, and what are some of the benefits your business has seen from taking climate action?
Absolutely. That's a very important question. I think it brings us all together here today. So it all really starts with why you bring sustainability into your business or into your own personal life. We're all being affected by the impacts of climate change already. It's not some distant future phenomenon that we're waiting to experience. It's already here. And as a business, we have a huge part in that. We're playing a big role in contributing to climate change and greenhouse gas emissions. So it's up to us to do our part to avoid the worst of the impacts in the future and really reduce our emissions at the source. So in the travel, tourism, and hospitality industry, we play a significant piece in greenhouse gas emissions. And so that really does motivate us to use and harness that power and contribution for good. So we want to transform the industry as a whole, not just being a single business doing good in the world, to really, take climate action and make a more sustainable future for other businesses that are in our community. There are lots of other businesses that are in this community. I mentioned we're a certified B Corporation, meaning that we go through a voluntary certification process to measure our social and environmental impact with every business operation. It's very holistic, it's standards driven, and it allows us to embed our climate action within our business. So other B Corps, they're called, in the tourism sector join in communities. We share best practices, and being part of that purpose-driven business community allows us to kind of go through the journey together. It's not something that any business should do alone, which is, again, why we're all here. Benefits that we've seen from this have been, as a B Corp, we've been allowed to increase our score. And again, each point as a certified B Corporation represents positive impact among the areas of community, workers, environment, and customers. So we've increased our impact score to 126 points, which is actually the highest scoring accommodations B Corp in the world now. So we're really proud of that title. We've seen savings from our sustainability and decarbonization initiatives in electricity usage, spend, water usage and spend, and really a rallying among our team members, because we're reflecting the personal values of our team within our business. So there's tons of benefits, and I could go on, but I'll let any other panelists answer. And if there are any more specific questions, happy to answer those.
It's good. It's really nice to hear you saying the benefits in different perspectives coming out of working with this climate action. I will direct next question to Ollie, and that is that you've created a business around sustainable purchasing. What drove you to do so, and can you tell us how you've been able to benefit by doing good for the planet?
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, Emma, that's a really cool business you guys are running. Like, incredibly inspiring story. So why are we doing what we're doing? Well, what drove me in the start and as a group of founders was we were all running different businesses, SMEs, fintechs in various markets, and we all wanted to do more when it came to sustainability. And we're all struggling with how are we going to do it? Because when we're a service-led business and the people-led business, it's very tough to find ways. And then we started looking at purchases and transactions, and there are 700 billion of them happening around the world every single year. And a lot of the choices I make around sustainability are in that transaction and in that moment, because I can choose to shop sustainably, I can choose to not shop, I can choose to buy from here, not there, I can choose to go to legacy vacation resorts versus somewhere else that is less good. And therefore, we can do something in that space and help people. And then we were thinking about, well, how do we help businesses in their journey? And actually, one of the challenges I face leading a people business is around how do I help my employees and help my teams live more sustainably? And you combine those things together, and that's where we started to build Echo. So we're about helping your employees understand their carbon footprint when they buy things, when they transact, when you go and buy things as a business, when you expense them. At least learn the impact of what you're buying, and then you can make better choices. And then you can also track it and report it. So we wanted to make it easier for people to get accurate view of their impact. And actually, the purchase has the factual data of what's just happened, not a survey or anything like that. It's factual data. Therefore, we can serve that up in a real-time manner that people will like, and that's kind of very useful. So for me as a business leader, we kind of built the thing that I wanted to buy. And therefore, that's how we've done it. I think one of the benefits we found of having a DNA of sustainability throughout the organization is it's allowed us to attract really top talent individuals to the business, like incredibly top talent, because businesses are attracting people who align to their values, and people who have really strong values don't go to businesses that don't align to them. And actually, sustainability is coming up as more and more and more important in that space. So it's been a huge benefit from us. We've got a brilliant team, brilliant individuals who come and join us, and the working environment's quite fantastic for that purpose, because everyone's here with a meaning, not just to make money or to kind of do your job. We're all here to make the world better and help our people, and that's a really nice place to be, if I'm honest.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I do get that. And I haven't used it myself, but it would be interesting to see my own reaction to that. And have you seen any positive reactions from people actually making different choices?
Yeah, we have. So people are making more sustainable choices. What's interesting is it's making you aware, not just in what you're purchasing, but makes you aware more generally. So people are walking a little bit more. We're getting feedback that people are making decisions to get the bus, or they're changing what they eat, and they're making decisions that I don't necessarily see within our data set. But because you interact with a card 5-10 times a day when you're buying stuff anywhere, it's a constant conversation that you're having, that constant behavior. And then we use positive reinforcement, so our bank cards look like that. It should make you smile and go, well, I feel good about doing good. I feel good about learning more. And that's kind of part of the development, the journey.
It's a big part of your life.
Exactly.
All right. So next, Inigo, please. In Women Business Coalition, they have recently had an annual survey. Small businesses shared that the top barriers for preventing them to take action on climate is time, skills, and funds. So how does your business navigate through these barriers to take climate action? Could you please describe a little bit?
Sure. Thank you for the question. For sure, these three barriers were tough for us. And I would say the first step was to have total commitment of the team. And the way we had this commitment was, first of all, awareness of the negative impact of the building sector in generating CO2 emissions. Just as an overview, 37% of the CO2 emissions related to energy worldwide come from the building sector. 10% of this 37% come from how you build the construction, and 27% is the life cycle of the building. And if all the building sector worldwide were a country, we would be the third emitter after China and the US. Therefore, it is fundamental that the building sector all around the world takes action. And that was very inspiring for Convive. I'm the founder and CEO, so I suggested the board to change our bylaws of the company, obligating us to have social and environmental responsibility. And that was one first step. After all the team was on board, obviously it was tough to obtain the resources and the knowledge. However, we learned that in Mexico, there was a program called NAMA Facility. NAMA is National Appropriate Mitigation Action Program. And we obtained, thanks to the KfW, around $1 million, a little bit less than that, to guarantee having energy efficiency houses in 5 of our developments, and implementing high energy efficiency in different cities, in different climates, in different segments, gave Convive a great knowledge in how to build energy efficiency housing. And thanks to that, as of now, all our houses are energy efficient, and we have pushed the limit to be net zero ready in all our houses, and we generated a pledge. And now our goal is to reach in 2025 more than 100,000 square meters of high energy efficiency housing in Mexico. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Inigo. And that's a great start, just making sure that everyone realizes the impact of your own sector. So that's a very good starting point for action, I think.
Exactly. That was the key element, because we didn't know before we decided to create this DNA in sustainability of the high impact of the building sector worldwide. And it was thanks to having correct advisors and learning of the impact and how we create this awareness. And that was the key element to make the change.
Thank you so much, Inigo.
Thank you.
And I think I will take a little bit of the same question for Emma here. What kind of barriers has Legacy Vacation Resort faced on the road to net zero, and how has your team navigated through these barriers?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of barriers that I know small and medium-sized enterprises face, and we're not an exception. Like you mentioned, timescales and funds are among the highest. So what we did to navigate around this is really from the start, Legacy is lucky enough to have a constant green light on sustainability initiatives from the top down. Our founder and chairman, Jared Myers, is the main proponent of our climate action, of our B Corp certification, and all of our social purpose and sustainability initiatives. So embedding that in the start of the business and really setting a foundation for the other departments and the rest of the business to kind of function around enables us to view these initiatives from not a lens of if, but how can we do this? So we were able to create a designated role, myself, for carrying the team throughout these initiatives. And truly, it's not a siloed effort. I'm not here doing all of this alone, decarbonizing our business and taking this climate action by myself within the business. It's a team effort. So in my opinion, the culture that we spread throughout our company of we all play a role in this climate action. We all are contributing and can contribute to the positive impact of decarbonization. We all, carry that weight together. Climate change doesn't just affect one area, it affects all. And so through kind of embedding that within our team, we're able to gain that support and therefore funding for climate action. We've started a green team, which we call our social purpose champions team, which really helps to spread awareness and responsibility on our climate action and other sustainability and social purpose initiatives throughout the company. And outside of our organization, we don't do this alone as one business either. We engage with other like-minded businesses and nonprofit organizations, as well as academic institutions. We're lucky enough to partner with different universities, with research and other initiatives to really do this together. So I hope that other businesses take away from that we don't have to only do it as one business, as one organization. It's truly a team effort, and we need to engage in our communities just as much as we do our internal teams.
So I have so many reflections from what you're saying here, but it seems like you've really integrated into your company and your vision, just like companies originally looking at cost, quality, security, depending on what kind of business you are. It's so common, but then also integrating and taking sustainability as a factor from the start, as you pointed out. It's just excellent. But quick question, just quickly. Have you seen, talking about collaboration as well, have you seen different companies, organizations taking after each other, like one doing this thing and then someone else copying and so on, in a positive spiral?
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially in climate action, I think within this like-minded business community, we all see the risk and the danger of climate change and that it's already here. And so we all kind of carry that together. So one example would be, we have a local to Florida, we have a carbon offsetting organization that bases all of their projects in the Southeast United States area, such as tree planting, landfill methane capture, and more. And so we've kind of spread that throughout our little Southeast corner, directing them to that nonprofit, to that carbon offset organization. And so we share that within our communities, and that organization is wonderful enough to help us with our decarbonization efforts. So not only do they calculate our carbon footprint and do the carbon accounting to conduct those projects that will absorb the amount of carbon that we're producing, but they help us with decarbonization strategy too. So again, it all comes back to that shared mission and value system of wanting to do good in the world and avoid the worst effects of climate change.
That is great. I love it. All right, so we'll take the next question. And Indigo, are you ready for another question? It has to do with tools and resources. So how have tools and resources currently available, such as the Climate Hub, SME Climate Hub that was described by Pamela earlier. How have those helped you move your company towards net zero? Can you tell us about that, and also how you prioritize this emissions measurement and reporting to keep track of progress?
Perfect, sure. Thank you for the question. For us, these tools have been fundamental. Convive was invited as a member of the board of Chapter Zero initiative, and which is a NGO, and the goal is to provide education for board members. I'm CEO of Convive, the housing company, and I'm also chairman of the board of an NGO called Educa that provides education to around 1,000 schools around Mexico and other top countries in Latin America. And we strongly believe it is fundamental to deliver education to board members, because it's there where you can really make change in your organizations. And being a board member of Chapter Zero has given me and the company great tools in a correct process in how to work in initiatives to reach net zero. So first is a commitment of the company. And as I said before, one key element is to change the bylaws of the company and provide education to all 122 members of the 122 employees of the company. After commitment, we started the process in measuring our emissions, starting how we construct the house and the life cycle of the house. And we learned about the important certifications that are there around the world. There's one called EDGE, designed by the IFC member of the World Bank. And using this EDGE certification, you learn in how to measure the impact in the reduction of CO2 emissions in the way you construct the house, and in different climates. We build houses in Cancun, in Playa del Carmen, in Mexico City, so in different climates around Mexico. After learning how to measure emissions, it is key to design the strategy. And a key element in energy efficient housing is how to obtain resources. So in the in the last question, I explained that we used a program called NAMA. That program concluded in 2019. And then we found out another important program also designed by KfW, this German bank, called EcoCasa, Eco House. And the way this program is implemented is that you can have savings in the interest rates if you do high energy efficiency housing. So now we have received more than $14 million. And when you receive this money, you're obliged as a company to do net zero ready houses. So that's the way we designed the strategy. And then the action plan, which is reduce emissions. So, and now we're very happy to say that 1,320 houses of Convive have high energy efficiency. Now we're delivering results. And we not only have impact in the company, we also have impact in our value chain. So our suppliers need to build the houses with these high energy efficient standards. And finally, support the climate action strategy in the industry as a whole. We have seen that if a company does a great product in a particular locality, clients become aware of the importance of having high energy efficiency in their houses, and they copy. So, which is good because you generate a collaboration to compete delivering good products. So in general, that's how Convive has implemented these important tools to design our climate agenda.
That's very good. There are so many different tools available, both when it comes to concept and IT tools, and making sure to use them is also one of the steps toward climate action, finding them and using them. Thank you so much, Inigo.
Thank you.
Now we have a few minutes left only for the panel section here, but I want to take a question with you, Ollie. How do you share your emission reduction progress with reduction progress on customer spending with your stakeholders?
Yeah,
Did you get that? Yeah,
I did get it. Because we
Yeah,
are
good.
all about transparency on what you've done and what your behavior is. So as you, as an individual, transact an employee of any business, we tell you in real time your emissions of what you just bought, and then you've got an app that has your company brand on it that talks about these. This is the spend. This is your impact. This is ways you can reduce your impact. This is how you do versus as a team competing, and equally versus your historic view. So we try and make it from the individual perspective, as an employee, very clear, this is my impact to the world. And then we aggregate all of that up for you as a company as well. So you as a company get to track what is the impact on a real-time basis on a dashboard, and you can get to see what is going on where, how can we help people reduce their footprint, how can we help fund initiatives that do good things in the world, whether it's carbon offsetting, whether it's plastic waste removal, all the good things that happen. And all of that is completely transparent to the individual, and then equally as a company, the company for all their employees and all their teams, which therefore means everything is completely transparent, completely auditable throughout. We then give it the tools for businesses to share that with anything they want to do with it. So they want to send to their board, to their customers, to show that they are really trying and taking a really meaningful approach to it. That is all open and available to people. For us, we really want to focus on empowering people to make a decision in the moment. Because we are aware that not everyone will make perfect decisions all the time, and that might be okay for them. But just being aware of the decision when you're making it is enough. I relate it back to, on a health perspective, like if you go shopping, I can choose between like a sandwich that has red calorie rating and a sandwich that's green calorie rating. I will always go for the green one because I'm aware of that decision. But sometimes I may fancy the red one because I just really want it. But I'm doing it and I'm aware of it, and it makes me a conscious decision. I think that's part of what we want to be. Just be conscious of it. And that's the first step. And we do that through transparency of all the data. It's all totally transparent for consumers, individuals, businesses throughout.
And talking about transparency, Emma, I have a question for you then. So has becoming more transparent on climate impacted your business?
Yes, so we just released our third annual benefit report, and this goes out to our internal team and our external stakeholders. Anyone can access it online. Highly recommend you check it out. It's a very thorough report of the benefit that we created for our stakeholders, for the community, our environment, customers, and workers. And so reporting on this, including reporting on our aggressive climate action goals, allows us to be accountable to those stakeholders, and it really adds a sense of urgency to what we're doing, more so than already. So for example, within this annual benefit report, we calculated an 8% carbon footprint reduction from 2018, and this has been a wake-up call to us. This is the most I guess clear and sophisticated we've gotten in our carbon reporting. So that annual reporting really does help us narrow down on what metrics are we reporting on, how can we improve that every year. And only being 8% to net zero carbon emissions by 2030 it's a wake-up call. We need to get more aggressive with our climate efforts. And if we're reporting this to our external and internal stakeholders, it almost gives us more buy-in from our team to take more aggressive climate action. In the next few years, we're going to be doing some really exciting projects. And so that kind of fuels it, because we want to look we want to show well for our stakeholders, show that we're making progress on these goals and allow them to celebrate our wins with us, but also allow them to hold us accountable in this way. Again, having that green light from the top down does really support. We're also about to share a press release on how we're seeing impacts within our business from our climate action journey. We're just hoping that that will help bring more businesses into this journey. But overall, being transparent allows us it brings us closer to the other like-minded businesses that are also doing good in the community, and address challenges together. For example, as a vacation resort company, we have the issue of guest education, or not the issue, the topic of guest education, and how aggressive do we get with talking about our climate action? How much do guests want to hear when they're on vacation about water and energy reduction and decarbonization, and when is it too much? So it's important for us to be transparent so as to not greenwash, but also to be mindful of how much is too much. Overall, just maintaining that value of transparency and accountability. So overall, I would say it's positively impacted our business in that it's ramped up our climate effort initiatives and made our reporting a lot more sophisticated.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, all three panelists, Emma, Inigo, Ollie. And we have some questions here from the audience. I'll try to do them right. And we'll start here. Pamela, welcome back. And I'm sure you have read these questions, so maybe you can help me a little bit. But I can start with one question here that I saw was for Emma. So this question is aimed at Emma, as she works in the hospitality sector. How do you take into account the emissions of guests traveling to the resort? Do you also calculate those emissions? I'm shortening the questions a little bit here.
That's a fabulous question. And in the name of transparency, that is something we're really working on and honestly struggling with. Scope 3 is a whole issue to tackle, but we're motivated and want to really hone in on our Scope 3. But I think it took us getting super crystal clear on our Scope 1 and 2 emissions to be able to consider those Scope 3 emissions. So what we have done within our Scope 1 and 2 and on the verge of 3 is calculating our team member commuting and travel for business, carbon emissions, and offsetting those, reducing those, implementing climate action initiatives there. As far as guests, that's next up on our docket. We're looking into that in the future, and it's going to be difficult, but we're hoping to again, find a values-aligned partner and share within the business community who has excelled at this and where we can learn from them. So stay tuned in the future for how we decide to tackle that, but wonderful question.
Otherwise, you'll make me from Sweden travel to your vacation resort, you know. Pamela, do you have a question you want to take, or should I go for it?
Yeah, no, I can actually take. So the team has very helpfully been posting, some of the questions in the chat box to help us address the most pressing ones. So I can take the first two. I think there was one about the normative tool. So that's basically the business carbon calculator that is available on the SME Climate Hub that was developed by our partner Normative with support from google.org. I can read the question out loud for the audience to hear. So it's saying Normative is a fantastic tool, but for Scope 3, it focuses on pound spend. As a growing business, we are naturally spending more. It is therefore increasing our Scope 3 emissions based on spend. However, it doesn't take into account things such as recycled content in products, renewable energy in supplier factories through solar panels, etc. Can you advise if there is a better way we can show our progress, as at the moment we feel penalized a little bit for growing our turnover? So thank you so much for this question, extremely relevant. So first of all, about the tool that we offer on the hub, so the business carbon calculator. So thank you for saying that it's a fantastic tool. Really appreciate the team team definitely worked very hard on this one, and it's a great first step, but we had to find a bit of a balance, a bit of a compromise between simplicity and accuracy with that tool. So we wanted a tool that would be very user-friendly, very accessible. Those of you who have used the calculator will know that we only ask a few simple questions to provide estimates of scope 1 and 2 emissions, so a few questions about the business, and then we use transaction data, spend data to estimate scope 3 emissions. That means that it's very, very simple to use. It only takes 1 or 2 hours basically to get your estimates if you can gather all the information that's required, but it's not the most accurate tool that you will find out there. So if you also want to factor in things such as, recycled content in products, renewable energy in supply factories, etc., you might be better off with a slightly more sophisticated tool. You can start with a business carbon calculator. Of course, it will give you like a very good baseline as an SME, but if you want to go a little deeper, I do appreciate that it might be best to also use slightly more sophisticated calculators, which sometimes will be paid for calculators. So it really depends on the level of accuracy that you want to achieve. And the other thing that I will say is that depending on the size of your business, so we're more than aware that often SMEs can be very small, but also fast growing businesses, right? So I do appreciate this tension between making sure that you can grow your business, but also taking action on climate and communicating about your progress. So we've set a specific rule for SMEs, very small SMEs, so the ones who have less than 50 employees that often are, the startups that are growing. And these companies, as well as the ones who are developing climate solutions, so 2 different categories, these companies can actually adopt what we're calling a carbon intensity rule as part of their commitment. So the commitment on the hub, most of you will know, is about halving emissions by 2030 and achieving net zero emissions by 2050. Now, these very small but fast-growing businesses, or the ones who are developing carbon solutions, can have their carbon intensity instead of their absolute emissions by 2030. So that means that you can look at your emissions by, based on your turnover, and have the intensity of that instead. Again, that's a way to ease you into the process. We all know that we need to reduce emissions as much as possible, but we don't want this to get in the way, of course, of you committing and joining the movement. So right now we have this rule, which will hopefully, facilitate your engagement as well. That was a long answer, but hopefully helpful.
If we see the second or the question just after that, I don't know if that's for you too, Pamela.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to take that one. I'll read it out loud again. I think that's helpful. So we have someone who works for a small business renting an office unit within a larger office space. And we're being asked if you have any advice on how they could go about measuring their emissions, because many of the metrics within the SME reporting tool that we have on the hub, for example, well, they simply do not currently have access to. Once again, super relevant question. I do appreciate that this is an additional barrier for businesses who are renting offices, who do not have direct access to their bills or meters. So there are a couple of things that can be done here. And of course, the SMEs on the panel are more than welcome to chime in. But first of all, you can try and make a bit of an assumption about your office's electricity usage. And that's based on, its area. So we're talking square feet, square meters, of course, the location and the type of building. There are tools like the business carbon calculator that use, different factors also to estimate your emissions based on these assumptions. And then you can also ask your landlord. Now, I know someone else made this comment about their landlord that is not always incredibly collaborative, but it is an option. Reaching out to your landlord to see if they would be willing to share some information that might help you come up with these assumptions, and then you could calculate your emissions based on a percentage of the percentage of the office that you use. And last but not least, we'll be creating additional guidance. For this, we are currently working on a number of action models that we will be adding to the hub in the coming months. And some of them will look at, energy efficiency in buildings, actions that can be taken there. And that will also help you, of course, estimate your emissions. So hopefully that helps.
That's great, Pamela. And you touched upon this question already, but are there any kind of tips and tricks for when you have landlords that are not really interested in working with this, or anyone in the panel?
I'd be very curious to hear about our SMEs because they might have experienced this firsthand, so their input
Yeah.
might be more relevant than mine.
Ollie or Inigo, maybe? Your mic is off.
Sure. What I suggest is first talk to your landlord. If the landlord has commitments towards creating a retrofit in the building, what I suggest is there's a great certification I explained before called EDGE. EDGE is designed by the IFC member of the World Bank, and is one of the best certifications. And the certification is for existing buildings or new buildings. Convive has experience in new buildings because that's our business. However, EDGE also has alternatives for retrofit. So if the landlord has commitment and you also offer a great tool to design a retrofit of the building to create high energy efficiency, that can be also very helpful for the landlord to commit and take action.
Okay, that's great, because yes, having this discussion, first of all, making sure that that discussion exists, and also providing information if you have that for your landlord, and examples, that is some of the options that you can do.
I have a quick add-in to that
Emma,
one.
yes.
So we have a Legacy Vacation Resorts. We are technically a holding company, and then we have our 8 resorts underneath. But thinking from the landlord perspective, one way that you could pose sustainability is not necessarily, hey, let's reduce our carbon emissions together. You could position it more as cost savings. Let's install all LED light bulbs to save money, or all water efficient low flow fixtures to save on water costs, and kind of position it that way so it's more of a cost savings but has an inherent benefit on climate action and sustainability.
Yeah, excellent point.
Very good point. So we have a question here. If we can just single out the biggest issue for SMEs, a quick answer here, maybe all the 3 of you, starting with Ollie, the single biggest issue for you to yourself work with climate action. Just a quick answer here. We are a little bit short on time.
The single issue, the biggest issue we face.
Yes, for working yourselves with climate action.
The biggest issue we face is people needing perfection over progression. So it's when you speak to people, it's not absolutely perfect. Everything's not perfect. Therefore, I'm scared as a business to put my neck out there and do something about this. First, what we should be doing is progression over perfection. Let's all try and take forward steps together. And if none of us stick our neck out, this is not going to be a good place to be very quickly. So that's the biggest one we face, trying to get people over that line of start by starting.
Yeah, that also puts a stop for transparency, right? You want to be perfect before you actually share, but luckily there are a lot of companies sharing what they have so that you can refine it together, which takes you much further. And thank you so much. And Pamela, I want to hand it over to you now, saying that we're kind of on the dot for closure.
So I think we might have an additional 5 minutes. I think I
Okay.
can wrap this up in just 30 seconds. So if we have even just 2 or 3 more minutes to answer additional questions, I'm guessing that the audience will appreciate. I spotted a couple of ones that I could potentially try and answer while you look at the rest of the list, Louise.
Yes, please go for it. I'll pick the next one.
There was one specifically about Scope 3 emissions. And again, I'm sure I will see smiles on the faces of our panelists because I'm sure this is something they've been grappling with. So the question specifically was, how best can SMEs reduce or offset Scope 3 carbon emissions when they make up the bulk of their total carbon emissions? So first of all, if that is your case, you're not alone. That's basically the case of pretty much every single business. So scope 3 emissions will generally constitute the bulk of your emissions. And we know this is a challenge because these are emissions that you have less control over. They come from your suppliers, of course, or the way your consumers use and clients use your products. So the very first step, I know this is going to sound obvious, but the first step is to try and measure them as much as possible. So once again, have a look at tools like the business carbon calculator or other tools that might be available out there, maybe for your specific industries, and try and understand what the hotspots are. So instead of, looking at the whole picture and getting a little bit panicked because, it's clearly a challenge, just look at really where the hotspots are. So depending on the industry you work in, these might be different. It could be about business travel, for example. Could be about logistics. If you work with suppliers that, for example, are not using EV vehicles. So if you manage to identify like the key areas where you can relatively easy take action, with business travel, it's pretty straightforward. With suppliers who might not be using the right vehicles, when you can try and switch suppliers, so have a conversation with them. So, step by step. Again, I do appreciate that this is a challenge, and we've taken that into account at the hub. And so you will see that our guidance is to start working on your scope 3 emissions, but that we also do appreciate that this is going to be a gradual process for you. But start by identifying the hotspots one step at a time and take specific actions. Once again, we'll be publishing specific guidance to help you with some of these pieces.
All right, Pamela, I'll take the next question. That will be directed for Ollie then. And it's directed to you because you may not have that much emissions in your operations, such as constructions, as an example. So how have you generally become more sustainable in all your activities for your organization? And what has been the most successful in this regard?
Yeah, I think I saw this question. In a way, we're quite lucky in that we've built this thing with sustainability in the DNA. So I think a lot of businesses we're in this position I've now got to go and research, understand, rebuild, look at everything from start to finish. Whereas we're a technology business, therefore, and we built it from scratch with this being our DNA. So every decision we've made along the way has been about making sure that we're the lowest possible emissions and we have the highest possible integrity and transparency throughout. So it's quite hard to answer that because I think it's a bit of a privileged space. I don't think everyone else is in that same position, if I'm honest. I've been in businesses where you inherit problems and you've got to go and dig it all out. So I don't really have an answer for that, if I'm honest, because I think we've kind of been lucky in that we built it from that way from day dot.
But I think it's a good answer, because sometimes when you talk to these types of businesses, it could be IT software or it could be consultancy, that you get the answer that, well, we're IT software, we don't have any emissions. But you started off with looking at sustainability, having this in your DNA when you were kind of building it. So that's, yes, also lucky for you that you actually thought about it from the start, because then you knew what to think about, probably, as opposed to those that have.
It's the conscious decisions.
Yeah,
I'm aware of it and I make a decision, but we still need to use cloud because we still need to run a software business. So there are still implications of that.
Yeah.
And
there are still emissions, for those that wonder. Are there emissions for software companies?
Yes, there are.
Yes, there are. All right, Pamela, I don't dare to move on.
No,
now.
I think that now might be the time.
I would like to.
You're right. Now is the time to wrap up. So thank you so much to all our panelists for this discussion. I really will hope it was helpful for all the SMEs who joined. If you haven't already, please go check out the hub, the tools that we have, the commitment. Interestingly, maybe I can address one last question quickly. Someone asked in the Q&A, what are the consequences for a company of not meeting a net zero promise when, or obligation by 2030 when it's been communicated officially? Well, the reality is what we really want you to do is your best, because it's in our collective interest. So as long as you're transparent about your journey, as long as you communicate about the challenges that you're facing, you will never be alone. So if you communicate your progress, but also your challenges to stakeholders like the hub, we'll be able to support you even more, and we're in this together. So by all means, do check out the hub, join our community. We're here to help, and we certainly hope to see you at a future event. So thanks again to you all, and have a nice rest of the day.